Thank you for being back with your drinks. That was a very short break, but there's a real treat up for us because here's yet one more young person who absolutely revels in the idea of discomfort. Sushant Singh Rajput is best known for his films Kai Poche, Mahendra Singh Dhoni and Byomkesh Bakshy, but he's done a couple of others. But what's fascinating about him is that he started out an engineering student. He came 7th in the All India Engineering Entrance Test, and all of us know what that means. He also won the National Olympiad for Physics, and he's been studying astrophysics and all of that. And in the midst of that, he gives it up and joins Shiamak Davar's dance troupe, goes into television, builds a very, very big career in television, kicks that up, goes into cinema, sits for 6 months, not getting any role, but is not comfortable doing television anymore, and then enters into cinema. And what is fascinating about Sushant is that unlike many other young entrants to this extremely public, extremely agonizing form, because it is so public, your failures and your triumphs are so public, Sushant has made very distinctive choices driven by a very distinctive philosophy and a very distinctive idea of where he wants to be and how he wants to live his life. So to understand that journey, to understand where he's moving towards and why he made the choices he did, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome someone that I'm told is a major heartthrob with the younger generation, Sushant Singh Rajput. Thank you. You didn't get your mic? I think we need to give him his mic. Thank you for being here, Sushant.
Thank you for having me here.
Like all good stories, one starts at the beginning. And you have such a fascinating beginning to start with, Sushant. As we just said, it's almost inconceivable that someone who pretty much tops an engineering entrance test, gets into an engineering college, is clearly, somewhat of a genius at physics, the way we guys think of physics. Why would you give that up to go and join Shiamak Davar, become an extra, part of the dance troupe in IFA, move to television? All of it would seem pretty inexplicable. So what moved you to do that?
I think there was only one thing that was going for me, and that was that I was just aware. And I was told that, choose one thing, or probably they gave me that thing to be very good at. And they asked me, my parents and everybody who loved me, they said that you need to be an engineer because, being a doctor was, I have 4 sisters. So they were asked to be doctors. I was asked to be an engineer. And probably after that, if we were good at what we were doing, we were expected to sit for civil services. And that was the thing. So yeah, I was doing it, but thankfully, I was also aware of the process itself. I knew that, okay, there is something missing. I was told that, okay, by the way, I started off as being this very shy and introvert kid. Because I was the youngest in my family, very pampered. I didn't know how to deal with people when I used to step out. So any sort of acknowledgement meant a lot. Also coming from a very humble background, money was always a differentiator in my life. So the money and any sort of acknowledgement were 2 big differentiators. And I was told that if you get these 2, you will be successful and then everything will be all right. But while I was doing it, and I cleared all these engineering entrance exams and I was studying, and I was just aware of what was happening. And I felt that, okay, this is not something, it's not giving me that high because it's boring. And that was the starting point. And well, I started off, I'll be extremely honest because after clearing such tough engineering entrance exams, when I went to that college, I found that there were no girls. And I was like, I felt Yeah, absolutely. I felt cheated. I was like, okay, this is not what it is, because they told me that work hard, be an engineer, and marry a nice girl, and that's what will happen. But that didn't seem to be a probability, because there were no girls in my college. Somebody told me that, why don't you join dance school? And I went there. But something very, very, very interesting happened. And
There's clearly a girl clapping there.
while I was performing for the first time on stage, I recognize this want of me, that I really want to be, or probably I have been wanting to be understood. And that was the starting point. Shiamak asked me to do theater. It was a wonderful way of resonating with everybody, because I was like, okay, don't judge me, because I'm not me on stage. I was hiding behind all these fascinating characters and possibly saying the same things that I wanted to say. And I could see these strangers getting affected by what I was saying, what I was doing, and it was magical. So just being aware of the process, and just telling myself that if I can be in top 1% in something which I probably don't like, now that I've identified something that I do like, and I don't care what people think of me, it doesn't feel like hard work. I want to take risks. There's nothing else but to perseverance is the thing, because that is the only thing that I want to do. So all these things were at place, and identifying that, I was like, okay, this is something I like. I can very well be in top 1% of this. And just being clear about my awareness, I dropped out.
So, Sushant, you know, you've spoken of this sense of relief when you were on the stage, whether dancing or even later acting when Shiamak asked you to take up acting. You know, can you explain that further? You know, that when you say that you came from a pampered family, that you had 4 elder sisters, when you stepped out into the larger world, it was almost a sense of shock. You felt that for almost 16, 17 years, nobody really saw you or understood you. Can you explain that? You know, what was that sense of alienation you felt? And what is this sense of relief that you feel as being an actor, that you don't have to play yourself?
Well, there are 2 things to it. Number one was, how did I convince myself into dropping out of a very prestigious engineering college into doing something which is very, very dicey? And number 2, what I found while doing it. So number 1 was, like I said, that if I could be in top 1% in something that I don't like, I can very well be in top 1%, which I absolutely like. And I promised myself a fancy house and a fancy car in Bandra, because I got to know that Shah Rukh stays in Bandra. So I was like, okay, this is what you'll get, and drop out. And just 6 to 8 months away from getting myself a degree, I dropped out. Because I thought that it will be a better state to be in if I don't have a plan B. Because I won't be thinking that if nothing happens, I'll go back to this. I perform better when I don't know that there is plan B. So that was one thing. And number 2, what I realized was something which I think is not specific to me, but is specific to almost everybody. And there's this question mark every time you're doing something, because you expect that that certain thing would give you something, but it is not actually that. We have this tendency to overestimate the hedonic impact that has to with anything that has to do with future. We think that, okay, I'll be successful, people will recognize me, I'll be rich, and everything will be sorted. Or if I am a failure, I don't know what will happen. But when that event happens, it is not the same. And there are lots of experiments that have been done on this. And Dan Gilbert talks about it, where there is a group of, there are 2 groups. One group is these amazing, promising CEOs of the world, and they lose their limb. And there's another group when these people are actually thinking about the next meal, and they win a lottery, $1 million lottery. And what happens is there's a big spike in their mental state after that event. But after a few weeks, and let me say, I'm not exaggerating, it's not about after a few years, after a few months, it's about after a few weeks. Group A, they still don't have their limbs. And Group B still have money. But that graph comes back to the original state. So we have this tendency to think that something would happen after a certain event. And I think that's a lie. That doesn't happen. But thankfully, I was doing something that I absolutely like. I give this example to everybody who asks me this. I was told to be an engineer. I enjoyed reading anything about physics or mathematics. But I was told that, okay, 4 to 5:30 is the time when you can go out and play. And I would still wait for 4 p.m. to happen. I would go out, and 4 to 5:30 would happen in 5 minutes. And I was like, okay, time is so subjective. And I'm so sure that last 11 years I've been acting, I feel like I've been living that 4 to 5:30 life. I don't know that I'm working hard. From somebody else's point of view, probably I am, but I don't know that I'm working hard. I don't think that I take risks. Like I'll give you an example that when you play a video game and you are sorted with the first level, what do? You are intrigued that what would happen in the second level, and that's the only way to go. So I try and choose scripts in which the characters I don't completely understand. And this is precisely the reason why I do it, because I don't know. So I think this thing, everybody should understand, that it is okay not to know. It is okay to admit that I don't know. And it is okay to like unpredictability. Because when once in 10 times, or probably 100 times, when you stumble upon something which is new, fresh, that is so addictive that you don't care about the 99 times that you fail.
Yeah. So to come back to my earlier question, Sushant, that you said that you felt an almost excruciating shyness as a young boy, as an adolescent, even when you were in engineering college. And then acting just opened it up for you. You know, you felt, as I said again, a sense of relief that you could hide behind these characters and you could project, and it was, you didn't have to project yourself anymore. Has acting changed you? Do you feel less shy now? Do you feel less traumatized now in trying to be yourself?
I'm just aware of the fact that I'm shy. I'm just okay with the fact that I have this inability to express myself. I didn't know what was why I felt so disorienting. Because the moment I used to think about something and then I wanted to put it in words, there was this inherent loss of meaning. And then I would articulate it. Obviously, that depends on your comprehension, your state of mind, your attention, everything. There are so many parameters that are not there in my hand. And I would judge myself thinking that probably I'm not right, or what I'm saying is not right. But now I know that, like I said, it is okay to be wrong. It is okay not to be careful. It is okay if that's personal, if that's fresh, it's something that you really believe in. It's okay to be understood to be something, probably like in physics, we are told that this is the first law, this is the second law. In mathematics, this is the right answer. So we are obsessed with thinking that there is a simple one answer to probably complicated questions. But what I've understood in the process of doing what I do is that there are no right answers. There are only ways of seeing. And it might not be my way of seeing could not be your way of seeing, but that's fine. We should be okay with this difference of looking at the same thing differently, and then probably collaborate and explore together. But yeah, I'm okay to be wrong.
Okay. It's well said, Sushant. So, you know, moving on with this strand of literally seeking discomfort, you moved from being a dancer at IFA and being part of Shiamak Davar's troupe to getting this really big role. I haven't seen you, but I know many people who've been absolutely, you know, like they saw you on TV and they said, okay, this boy has it. In Pavitra Rishta, you were doing really well, earning a lot of money. All the things that you were talking about, the future had arrived in the present. And while you were enjoying that, you suddenly decided to chuck it up and move yet again to newer pastures. What was that? Now you were already doing something you liked. You were already projecting other characters. What was the new restlessness that took over and made you leave all of that as well?
It's the same thing. I'm a very selfish guy, also a very selfish actor. So what I thought was, okay, I'm not being...
And you had girls in television.
Oh, yes, you bet. So for a few weeks, I was like really happy. I was like, okay, I need to be very excited, although I was not, because I was getting very quickly used to everything that I had. Like we have discussed what are the things. But now what we do, generally, the tendency is to change the context. Now that after that point of inflection, that I have that much money that I don't have to think about money, and that sort of acknowledgement where people who you don't know you become okay with that fact, and those things stop giving you any high. So what you do is you quickly change your context, and you're like, okay, these are the people who are in top 1%, and I think in the same category, and let me now prove them that I am the best. But what you are doing actually is probably holding on to what you think is right, and you're being a better repetition. That's it. And you're being obsessed with those events in which you can prove these people that you're better. But that's not a very great state to be in. Like somebody said that even at the end of the day, when you win a rat race, you're still a rat. So we quickly change the context, and ignoring the fact that there are so many parameters that are not there in your hand, but probably those will support you in one event, those won't support you in one. And if I'm judging myself according to that, I will be incessantly confused and fidgety in order to prove a point. I got to know that I'm not in control. When I was studying, I was like, okay, I just need to remember the laws. I just need to remember the formulas. And when they ask me, it's very simple. It's like they take a test on just two things. One is my comprehension. Two, how much I can retain. And three, in a stipulated time, how much information I can come up with and try to make sense. These things are very simple things. But when you're actually there and you're doing something like performing arts, what you find that, okay, now you're in top 1%. Now those things are not the differentiators. No matter you...
Just hold on, Sushant. Can all of you hear clearly? Because I have a lot of reverberation on the stage. Can you hear? Okay, sorry. And Sushant, feel free to speak to the audience because I don't want to hog your entire gaze.
All right, so I'm still shy. So that's what I understood, that, okay, there are these many parameters that are not there in my hand, and then I became okay with that fact. There are two things, and those two things are very different things, and it's my subjective opinion, I might be wrong. One is not knowing, because of ignorance or anything, but not knowing is very different from knowing many things to understand that you don't know anything. You know what I'm saying? And I'm here. I have with all my passion, all my integrity, all my love for what I do, I have understood that all the takes in which I'm very good at, I don't know what I do. So all my research preparation has to do with probably what not to do, but I don't know what to do, and that is the reason why I do it, because what's the point if I know it and then do it? So I'm okay with not knowing, I'm okay with the failure. But at the same time, what it does is absolutely grounds me. And I'm not thinking about earning a certain reputation. I'm not thinking about what you're thinking about me. I'm just intrigued by the process itself, because I don't know what's the next step, and I want to know, and I might stumble. I might fall, but I'm okay with that, as long as I cannot anticipate.
So, Sushant, you spoke about in your childhood and through your growing up years, in the beginning, that money was a great determinant. But now you seem to have moved past that. So is that because your bank balance finally looks robust? And are you able to buy everything you want? What is that inflection point at which money stopped meaning anything to you?
I don't know how much money I have. I'll be extremely honest to you. Not because
Such an ocean?
I'm not
What
because
the hell?
Not because that I have a lot of it, but very early I realized that, okay, I can not think about what's going to happen tomorrow. Not that I was thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow. I'll be extremely honest with you. When I dropped out from my college and I went to Bombay, I used to stay with 6 guys in one room kitchen, and we were continuously thinking about what to do so that we can stay together. You know what I'm saying? So I would give tuitions to people, probably, and earn money. But that's being with those 6 guys in those one-room kitchen, not knowing what's going to happen, was such an exciting phase to be in, that with all the money I have, all the acceptance, acknowledgement I have, I can be at par with that. I cannot exceed that. So I'm fearless. No matter what happens, my films don't do well. And I know that I'm just one of the many, many parameters. My films don't do well. What I'll do, I'll go back to theater and probably be with 6 different guys. That'll be the difference. But I'm completely okay with the fact, because I was enjoying being there. So it is not I'm obsessed with a certain place where I want to arrive at so that people acknowledge me. I'm just okay with the process itself.
I'm going to, I'll quickly tell you that there was this incident that Sushant has spoken about elsewhere, where he was gymming and building his body, and he suddenly realized that for almost 6 months he'd been wearing the same gymming clothes, and he looked into the mirror and said, oh, okay, I'm a star, I better go get myself some new gymming clothes. And on the way he saw a BMW bike for about 30 lakhs, and he said, oh, I like that bike. And he bought himself the bike instead of the gymming shorts, you know. And I think you've spoken elsewhere. He said, but that's the inflection point at which he felt that there's a point when a little bit of money can get you very big things. And then there's an inflection point after which a lot of money can get you very small things. And I think that's very well put, Sushant.
True. And it's not that it's something that I want to believe in. It's not that because of certain reputation I want to have, and I want you to think that I'm humble or probably good, whatever, that I want to say that I have experienced it in my life. For somebody like me, you know what, money was, I wanted to go to this international university and study. I really wanted to go there, and I was good at it. And at that point of time, I realized that, okay, I can't go there because I don't have a certain thing which I cannot possibly earn at that point of time. It was a eureka moment, you know. And I was like, okay, this must be very important. So I know the importance of money. I'm not saying that money is not important. Of course it is important till a point, because it buys you and it moves a lot when you don't have it. But after you have it, a lot of money buys you just a little. And just creating that illusion that, okay, I have much more money than you, and hence I should be happy, and then pretending to be like that, it doesn't make you happy. So this thing, I was just aware. And because I was curious, I thought there is something wrong with me. So I started watching videos, I started reading books, and I realized that people who are like, just like Think, there are certain forums that happen internationally, like edge.org, where the pioneers of different disciplines who are standing at the edge of knowing everything about that discipline. They meet and they discuss one idea, and they discuss one idea every year. So they were discussing the same thing. And what I'm saying right now is I'm actually quoting Daniel Kahneman, who's a Nobel Prize winner, and he says that there are 2 different selves. One is the experiencing self, and the second is one who just reflects and thinks that I should be happy. You know what I'm saying? So 99% is the experiencing self who doesn't care what is happening as long as it's fresh. It's a new experience. And that 1% which forms the narrative is completely different. And you can manipulate that. And I understood that. So I'm not concerned about that 1%. I'm continuously manipulating that 1% so that I have a good story to tell. They say that your life is the story that you tell yourself. So I have a very good story to tell. But I'm not concerned with that 1%. But I'm continuously trying my best
to
indulge in experience that I absolutely fascinated about.
So let's move to your films. Out of the 3 films that everybody has seen and really you've been applauded for, which of those roles did you resonate with? Let's pick Dhoni, for instance. What about that role really challenged you, made you feel that the experience was worthwhile?
Can I be extremely honest? I have read all the books on acting, and I know
the books
on acting, and there's several different technical aspects and the terms that I can use, and I can say that, okay, these are things that I'm really work on, and those are things that matter. But ultimately what happens is everything that I know theoretically and everything that I do, they don't relate. And I have read about several different actors all around the world who are like the best, Meryl Streep to Daniel Day-Lewis, and they also admit.
Sushant, I'm just going to point you back to the audience because the last time someone told me that, people keep looking at you and we feel left out of the conversation.
I'm so sorry.
I don't want them to feel left out.
So Meryl Streep and Daniel Day-Lewis, and what they say is that, okay, we understand few things theoretically, but when we do, there are certain other things at play, and they can't recognize it. So what I'm trying to say is there's no correlation between these two. I don't know what works. All I know is that this is something that I absolutely like, and I would pay you to allow me to do that. And thankfully, I'm getting paid for it, and a lot. So I'm not.
But I read somewhere that you said that finally, when you saw the film Dhoni, even you clapped yourself on the back and said, "Okay, I've done something." So tell us why you felt that sense of achievement.
It has to do with whenever I'm performing, I don't see the monitor. The monitor is where the director checks the take, and you can see yourself performing. So I don't have a reference of how I'm performing throughout the process of filmmaking. So what happens is that's a completely different experience. And when you're called for dubbing of the film, you're watching yourself behaving in a certain way that you never planned, because that's how I work. And if it reminds you of the character you're playing, you just have this smile on your face. So that's what I was feeling. I was like, okay, this reminds me of somebody who is the captain of Indian cricket team. So I was happy about the process. Not that I think that that was the best way to portray him, but I did my best.
Okay. In Kaipoche, you were a cricketer who had been, who didn't succeed, and then 2 years later you were playing the captain of the Indian cricket team. How did you differently prepare for both these roles? I mean, how did you prepare for being Dhoni, and how did you prepare for being this rejected cricketer?
It's a very simple thing. It is so abstract. There are so different processes that you can think of building a character. And like I said, I have a team. So they are friends of mine who were seniors in my college, and they went to the best B schools in India. And I called them up back, and we formed a team, and we worked together. So it's a wonderful process. And so we tried to figure out, okay, how we can be slightly more specific in the process of building a character. And we found that there is this test called MBTI test that tells you that there are only 16 characters in the world. So you have to answer 150 questions, and then it will tell you that you are this character type, and it will give you the exact analysis of that character. So what you do is, just like Sherlock Holmes, you read the script, you write down all the hints about your character, and then as the character, you take the test, and it will tell you what character type you are. And if I take the test, and if my two friends from the same college take the test, and we have the same character type, we know that we are hitting on something really specific. So that's what I did. Just like Ishan in Kaipoche, I took that test, and like Dhoni, I took that test. Also asked Dhoni to take that test, by the way, and we found something very specific. And there was this predictive analysis of that character type. And you start thinking like that, over a period of time so that your spontaneity changes into the character spontaneity.
So what was that, when you had to understand Dhoni's character, is there like a characteristic, like a really deep trait about him that you internalized? What would that be?
Yes, absolutely. Just like, we talked about Maslow's hierarchy, and the top of that pyramid talks about self-actualization. What I missed out when I was reading it is that when that was published, he was working on something else, which never got published. And it was self-transcendence right at the top. So what happens is, the way he took the test, the way I took the test, he was somewhere where he was just not being obsessed about what's going to happen tomorrow. Just not obsessed about the length of the journey that he has, walked to be at that point of time. He was just in the moment. And with all his skills, they say that your prefrontal cortex, it interferes with your performance. So you can be in top 1% of because of your skill, because of your hard work, but what you call to be in the flow, to be in the zone, it's when your prefrontal cortex is not interfering with the experience itself. So that happens when you're not obsessed about what's going to happen. That happens when you're not obsessed about holding on to your reputation. So you're in the zone most of the times. And this was the differentiator. This is what he was doing continuously, just being unaware of what people are thinking, just not being obsessed about holding on to the reputation, and performing, just being in the, completely engaging with the experience itself.
Wow. So, okay, we are, my God, that
Tricky.
went, yeah. Sushant, one quick question. Is your father happy finally with the decision you took?
Yes, he is happy. He just used to, he says, he just used to walk in the morning. Now he also goes in the evening because his friends tell him that, "Arey, aaj paper mein aapke bete ka naam aaya hai." And he's like, yeah, mujhe pata hai. And so he calls me up and he's like, oh, so he was not very happy. He was shocked when I dropped out. He didn't say anything. And now he says that, okay, I'm happy. Whatever you're doing is good. But yeah, degree le lete. Degree. What I'm doing right now, DCE, the college that I was in, they want me to come and have a conversation with the students. And I want them just to give me some doctorate degree or probably some degree. And I will dance and I'll do every sort of thing that they want me to do for free. So that my dad is happy.
So you've given me a great cue, Sushant. Before we wrap up and take audience questions, you just said that you'll dance for free. Please dance for free for us as well.
All right.
Okay. Can I ask the console to play a song that we can get Sushant to dance through? Which one did...
Back in the day, when I was young, and I used to attend birthday parties, and I would get a chance to stand in front of everybody and dance. I feel a deja vu feeling right now, but I will still do it.
को खुद से अलग करके रख लूंगा तुझको मैं हग करके I wanna say you मैं तेरा ना सोनिए तेरे नाल नाल नी है दुनिया को खुद से अलग करके रख लूंगा.
Wow. You've been speaking about that transformative power of art. One saw that, You would never say that's a shy boy dancing.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very, very much, Sushant. I'm going to see if there's some audience questions. Before that, while I'm looking at the questions, would you just share with the audience that, this other aspect of you where you feel if you're not going to get any further film offers, you're still okay because you still have theater to go to. So would you tell us about what is the new play you're engaging with and what it's about?
It happened after just after the release of Dhoni, and it was received well. And then all the filmmakers that I wanted to work with, they came to me with wonderful scripts. But I somehow anticipated, okay, this is something that I can do, and I didn't do it. Although I could have made a lot of money. But those 3-4 months after the release of Dhoni, I just decided to do this play by Moravia. I still have to do it. We're still doing the blocking. It's called The Two of Us, where this creative guy talks to his penis, and they're debating that who is responsible for that guy to be at the place where he is. And I play the penis, by the way. But yeah, it has to do with your love for not knowing and to explore on your own the different ways of seeing, different ways of doing something that you really like doing. And then if money and fame cannot sustain the kind of reputation I thought they would, for me, somebody like me, I think they just don't matter. It's a big lie that everybody tells us, that they would really, really matter. Of course, when you don't have it, they do. But when you have it, it's just sheer curiosity and love, identification of what you want to do, and then doing it, that matters.
So there's a question from somebody who hasn't sent their name, but they said Bihari and a TV actor stereotype. How difficult was that to break?
It was not difficult. I think it was a big support, because for some reason Biharis we think that we can do anything. So yeah. Yeah, so it has to do with this extreme confidence, and like the book that I've read, not that I support everything that is written in that book called The Secret, and it tells you about you need to believe, and when you start with that point, you maximize your potential to get certain result that can work as the confirmation bias, and then you use it again in the cycle, and it goes up. That's how they define that 1% owns 99% of the money and everything. So Biharis, for some reason, we have this inherent confidence, and we think that we can do anything.
So you do.
Absolutely.
Okay, Avanti has a question. It says, on the one hand, you seem very scientific and read a lot, example, Maslow and all the rest. On the other hand, you seem to be spontaneous, unplanned, ready for anything. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, because like I said about that forum, and when I see that, okay, these are the people who are the best in their field, be it evolutionary psychology or cognitive science or philosophy, artist, and then they discuss one idea, and they're contradicting each other. They're okay with the fact. And all you know is that it's a classic Darwinian setup, where it's an explosion of information. And as we all know, that information itself doesn't mean anything until unless it's in some context. So it's an explosion of information and lack of attention. So it's a classic Darwinian setup where it is not the information that will be the differentiator, but the way we see.
Well said. So Sushant, you've entered this whole new community. Somebody said, love the serious stuff, amazing to see such intellect. Now give us some Bollywood gossip. So here's, I mean, since this person hasn't identified themselves, let me ask you, being the kind of person you are, doing the kind of reading you are, how do you get along with Varun Dhawan?
We discuss about the possibility of Jodhpur 3.
Kangana Ranaut.
We discuss about many serious things.
Well, more seriously, you have a distinct voice. What would you do if you had to do a comedy film using expressions with minimal conversation? On the lines of Mr. Beans, would you ever do a character like that?
He doesn't speak in his films, so it will come very handy for me.
It's like you revisiting your adolescence.
Absolutely.
Okay, Siddhant wants to say, what is something that the present SSR would tell a young pre-Kai Poche SSR?
that do not fret, everything will be fine. This is something that I remind myself again and again, that the future me is an asshole, and he will take care of himself. I'm not his slave, and I'll not work for him.
Well said. That's a great note to end on, Sushant, that you will not be a slave to the future, Sushant. And you've been speaking constantly about living in the present. Certainly for me, the experience of you has been that you're a very unusual entrant to Bollywood. And certainly the choices you're making are very unusual. You don't want to be unusual, but that's our experience of you. One last question, that you just did a film where you had to have the abs and the moves and all of that. Did you like that self? Do you want to play some more of those glamorous roles and enjoy being that?
And I think I'm done with it. I just had to do it once because, very honestly, I got dumped many times in my life. And I was here in the college and in the school. I got dumped again and again, and they said that you're not good looking and you're not interesting enough. So I had to do a film in which I'm all this a charming guy with six packs, so that they just regret.
Well, that's the power of cinema, that you get to play all the things that you weren't at the time you wanted them to be.
Absolutely.
And so thank you very, very
Thanks
much for being with us, Sushant.
Thank you so much.
And it's really been good having you.